We try every semester to have what we call a practitioner seminar, where we bring in someone who is not a psychologist to talk about a topic that is psychological relevance, and hopefully to create a dialogue, and hopefully an ongoing dialogue. So I hope that this is the beginning of an ongoing dialogue. I'm particularly delighted to introduce someone who is known to a lot of us already, David McClure, who is the rector, the head teacher of Madras. I did do some spying on you. I looked on the web.
And gosh, am I there? Right.
But David started off, in fact, as an engineer, working at Doonray and at Scottish Aviation.
Yeah.
And then, he never quite explains why, but decided to go to Jordan Hill and become a teacher in a fit of something, sanity, madness, who knows, and has had a glittering career since. He started off as a mathematics teacher, and still teaches mathematics.
Yes.
In fact, I had a mathematics lesson a couple of weeks ago.
You did, that's correct, yes.
He has, over the last 15 years, been quite a significant figure, I think, in Fife. From 2002 to 2013, he was the rector at Buckhaven. In 2013, he came to Madras. Now, I think by common consent, in 2013, Madras was facing a number of issues, a number of problems. It had some fairly lukewarm reports. After he came in 2014, there was another inspection. I'm going to embarrass him by reading from that inspection, but I hope someday there are words like this about me at school. There won't be, but I thought it's a glowing report. Right? It's a glowing report, and it says the head teacher has been at the forefront of all developments in the school. His reorganised senior management team is better placed to take forward priorities for improvement, and is keen to do so. In a relatively short period of time, the head teacher has gained the trust and respect of all stakeholders and inspired them with a new vision for the school. Most importantly, at the heart of recent developments, he has placed the interests and futures of young people. All staff should maintain this focus on addressing young people's needs better as the school continues to develop. And then it concludes, this inspection found the following key strengths. Number one, the motivational leadership of the head teacher. Now, if we did a review of this school or of this university, would it start off by saying that the greatest thing about St Andrews Psychology and Neuroscience is the motivational leadership of the head of school? I doubt it. At the same time, as having personal praise, there is no doubt in the statistics that the school is on an upward curve. I'm sure we're going to be told, but it's moved very much upwards in terms of performance, in hires and in advanced hires. And so the question for today is, what did you do and how did it work? And I hope we'll find out so that we can distill it and steal it and apply it ourselves. So very much looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for coming along. It's Friday night, and I know that the bars have got a great attraction for many. So it's really good of you to come and listen to the nonsense that I'm going to speak about. Steve has indeed read out one or two bits and pieces from the inspection, and I did indeed start off life, and I'll talk a wee bit about that as an engineer. But I really want to be talking a little bit, if I can. Let's see how I'm doing. Oh, I'm missing one out here. The school performance. Yeah, a little bit about school performance and one or two wee background stories about the school, or numbers about the school. There's about 150 staff in the school, and there's 1,270 pupils. So it's a reasonably sized organisation. And in terms of organisations with people in it, it's a large organisation. So the role of rector or head teacher is fairly crucial in managing all of that stuff. Not just managing it, of course, but leading it, which is slightly different. In the Sunday Times report in November, in the top 50 schools in Scotland, it was really nice to see that Madras had once again made its way in there, and that we were 26th. So I remember as a young teacher teaching through in Ayrshire as a maths teacher, we always knew about Madras because we used to come through to competitions which were normally held in Dundee, maths competitions, and we always lost to Madras. So it's really nice to come through here and be part of that organisation instead of cursing it to be leading it. So Madras has always had a very good reputation throughout Scotland, and it did kind of falter a little bit for a wee while there, but it's nice to see it back in the top 20 at number 26. And in fact, that was for 4, 5, and the S4, 5 and 6 results. But if you take our S6 results for advanced hires, we were 6th top in Scotland. So it's a reasonably good accolade for the staff who work extremely hard in there. They do annoy me now and again, but they do work incredibly hard, and it's nice to see that. The school roll was one of the issues when I went into the school. The school roll was falling, and it had been falling year on year. And when I went there 3 years ago, the first year intake was 204, which is a good size. It's not bad, but it was falling from where it had been before. And I'm pleased to say that that school roll has been steadily increasing, and we expect in August 257. Well, that's the projection at the minute. It could go up. If it goes over 260, that's a bit of a bugger, because I'll need to create an extra class set, and an extra class set's another 25 periods, and another 25 periods is 1.3 staff, and that's £43,000. So I'll just kind of watch the numbers as they creep in. Not that I would stop anyone coming in. We're very pleased to see the school roll on the increase rather than the decrease. Literacy and numeracy, as well as school leaver destinations, are things that we look very much at. And currently we're sitting, and I must say that Baxter and Wade are very similar to ourselves, with about 95% positive destination for pupils leaving the school. So it's a really good number, and again, the story about the school is quite positive. That's just some attainment measures. I'll not bore you with it, but in all the measures, in every one of the measures, in 2014, those figures there, the 43.5%, 58.7% and so on, those were the figures that went forward to the inspectors. So when they inspected and gave us a very good for our attainment and pupil experience and so on, very good actually was the highest award that was given out that year for schools, and only 6 schools in Scotland got it. That was a set of figures that we had, and then last year's figures in every single measure, they increased again. So there's a lot of hard work going on in the school, and it's really nice to see that, because it all leads to outcomes for pupils, and that's really what it's about. These are the key things that we focus on. Attainment doesn't happen on its own. For me, attainment sits alongside 2 very heavily supported areas, which is the curriculum itself, what we deliver, and the pupil experience. And the pupil experience in Madras involves all the work that goes on in the classroom, and that's a key factor in there. But equally, all the trips and the clubs that we provide, which is all delivered voluntarily by staff. There's an insane number of trips. I have to evolve all the trips. Probably the same when anyone who goes on a trip in Scotland with young people has to evolve that trip, which is saying where you're going and all the risk assessments and so on. I actually can't, I have no idea how many I have evolved this session. It's in the region of 600 or 650 trips so far, and there'll be a lot more yet. It'll end up about 800 trips out of school. Some of them abroad, or many of them abroad. There's a skiing one just now that's going abroad to America. I just evolved that this morning. And we've got cultural exchanges, which are very rare in Fife. I think there's only, to my knowledge, 4 schools do cultural exchanges. We've got a cultural exchange to France, one to Spain, and one to Germany. So we've got 3 cultural exchanges where the pupils stay with families and so on. And it's quite difficult to get staff to do that because of the work that's in there. If I go beyond that, then there's all the opportunities that are in the school, opportunities which things like third year prefects. We've got peer tutors where the senior pupils help out in classes. There's a really nice story that goes with that. We've got, as you know, we've got one member of staff just now who's diagnosed with the motor neuron disease, and he is now in a wheelchair. But we had a whole rash of students dying to volunteer to peer tutor in his class and support them. So he has at least 2 seniors in his classroom helping as he goes around the class, so that they do all the kind of legwork and he does the board work from a stick. But it's really nice to see that the students wanted to support that. So the peer tutoring is fabulous in there. We've got language ambassadors. Our 6th year language students go into the primary and work with the P7s. We've got, we did first aid in the workplace as the first time here, so we got in a company called Skillforce, and 75 of our pupils have now achieved. It's really quite a significant first aid award. If you were to try and do a course online, it would cost you £1,000 to book in. So we've got 75 kids who have done that. It didn't cost me 75,000, by the way. I managed to get them for 11,000, which was great. And they're a really great company. And as well as that, they've taken on a leadership award for the pupils too, where the pupils organised a first aid event for the first years, where they trained them in Heart Start. Heart Start is one of the kind of small first aid things that we do, but it was the senior pupils who organised it and delivered it. So that was terrific. So not only did they get their first aid certificate, they've got the Rasdan Award for leadership and so on and so forth, but better than that, they've got a really good experience, so that if when they apply for a job or for university or wherever, and on their CV this will be written there, and of course some of the questions they'll be asked is, certainly if it's a job, they'll be asked, can you give us an example of you working in a team? Brilliant example. And in my 5 a day, when I talked to the students, I was asking them a wee bit about that. I wished I hadn't, because they talked for about 25 minutes and I couldn't get them to shut up. But they would be able to go into an interview or wherever and describe that. So it's not just about the qualification, although that's quite important, but for me even more, it's about their ability to articulate an experience. Because at their age, that's what they're going to have to do. That's their next stage. We've got Girls into Energy working with Shell, and that's a National 5 qualification. Next year, we're linking with we did link with the university this year with KPOD, but we're linking again. We're offering TEFL, a short TEFL course. I think it's going to cost £100 per pupil to get through that. And it's not the full TEFL course, but it would get them on the way. And again, it's something they can put into their CV and talk about. And we've got, I don't know, again, an insane number of sport and music and drama opportunities for the pupils across the school. And that's all down to the teachers. They give their time. And they just give it on a voluntary basis. So despite me leading them, they still think it's good that they do that, and that's just one of the strengths of the school. If I can take away from that, there's a whole myriad of things that go on around the school as well. There's health and well-being, there's health and safety, there's CPD, which is professional development, self-evaluation, partnerships, and so on and so forth. All the things that happen in a school in the course of a session. Again, it's an insane number of things that go on beyond the classroom, and it's all just part and parcel of being a large organisation like a school. I want to talk about culture, though, because it's really culture that it comes down to. You can talk about a million things. You can talk about qualifications, partnerships. For my money, it's all about culture. And I'm just taking a very basic, and I'm sure you'll spot it. It's a business model that attitudes involve behaviours, and behaviours are what lead to outcomes. So if you really want to focus on an outcome, you don't focus on the outcome at all. You focus on the attitudes around that outcome, because it's the attitudes that will deliver the behaviours, and they will deliver the outcomes. So what is it that influences attitudes? And that's really the question, because if you get that right, you'll get the outcomes right, and you'll get everything else right, says he. These are what I think involve attitudes. The outcomes themselves will involve attitudes, because if you're a successful school and things are going well, everybody's happy, and it just lifts the whole place up. There are personal issues of which I have no control, but I will support any personal issues. And in a school like 150, there are constantly people needing to go out for various things. Sometimes it's to support their children, it can be childcare, it can be family issues, it can be a million things. And you just try and support that. But I can't influence it, I can only support it. But the one that I can influence is the leadership. And the leadership is one of the key things, of course, that influences attitudes. But you get different kind of leaders in a school. I've put these ones up as green. I would see these as positive leadership influences. The head teacher, whatever my vision and values and how I operate the resources, they'll have a serious impact on the school. The principal teachers, the middle management, who can support or don't support the core values that the school would want to deliver. And they don't all support it. Well, most of them do, but you can get a few grumpy ones, and we have a few grumpy moments sorting that out. The class teacher is a leader because they set up the classroom atmosphere. The good pupils, they're leaders in their own right because they will display through their positive conduct how the culture of the school should be, and they will display values in their own right. So the pupils are quite strong leaders in there. And young people, both staff and pupils, they're really key to an organisation because they tend to have the most energy. So it's always nice to get young people into the organisation, even if they are a bit inexperienced. They supply the energy. There are those who are in the red, and I would say unhappy people. And again, you always get the grumpy people in your organisation. There's 150. You never get 150 super happy people, not unless they're on drugs or alcohol. So there are kind of grumpy people in there, and they drain the energy from the system. And you should always try and work with them. And I'll talk a wee bit about that if I get time later on. Pupils who break the rules, they're quite key in the leadership of the school because they challenge authority and they challenge what it is that you're doing, and they ignore them at your peril because they will have a following, quite a strong following. So I never allow that to go unchecked, no matter what and no matter how small. It won't be unchecked because that's a significant leadership area in the school. Ineffective leaders, yeah, they mean well, but they dither and they do it wrong and what have you, and you've just got to keep working with them. Parent groups can be both positive and negative. Just now I'm very lucky because the parent groups that I've got just now are very positive and they are very supportive of the school. I have in previous existence worked with parent groups who are not so positive, and they can be they can have quite a negative impact on the culture of the school. They can wear the staff down and so on. The local authority, I've stuck them in the red there because they really get up my face, I've got to say. They have too many initiatives and too many priorities, and they're all looking after their own Teflon skin and making sure it's nice and shiny and nothing sticks to that. So they just get really up my face, I've got to say. Anyway, I'm glad that you're taping this and that it's and it's going to the local authority immediately after this, right? Leaders affect outcomes. So if leaders affect outcomes, what does that mean? How do you see yourself? Because self-evaluation is really quite key. So how do you see yourself as a leader? But more importantly, how do others see you? Because if you want to do self-evaluation, yeah, you're constantly internalising what you're doing, but you also need to do a 360 quite regularly. You've got to go and find out what others are saying about you or thinking about you, because it's nice if it lines up, and the HMI did line up with me, I was pleased to say. I've got to say, it's lucky White Heather, because in Buckhaven I got inspected 3 times, and then I came to Madras and I got bloody well inspected again, and I just seem to have had a whole series of inspections as I go through. However, how do you see yourself and how do others see you? So there's this chap here, Sir Alex Ferguson. So Sir Alex Ferguson is, in terms of a leader, is really a great leader. He displayed great experience. He's highly successful. He's driven. He's quite emotional. I think for him, the team is everything, but he still tried to look after the individuals within the team. So a great mix in there of leadership. Then there's a chap who wants to stand in front of the tanks. So you've got the defiant leader, and he likes a challenge. And he's a bit mad. Or, alternatively, he just happens to work in a bad neighbourhood. I'm never quite sure. Or you can get this kind of leader here. You can get Humpty. And there's a lot of leaders like Humpty who like to sit on the wall. They don't really want to get anything wrong, because if they get it wrong, it could hurt the school, or even worse, it could hurt them. They will be safe. Just as long as the wall's there, they'll be safe. Or you get the chap who walks about like this, and people can see bits of this leader, but the leader's so busy reading or writing policies or emailing so that he doesn't see people. And in his world, or her world, there's no real time for people. So all of that are kind of different varieties of leadership. And if you are being truly self-evaluative, you need to look to see, because there's bits of this in everybody, and you need to see which bits are sitting there with you and how much and so on. Because I can't say that I don't look at policies. I can't say that I don't email. Of course I do. I can't say that I'm not about as much as I would like to be. I am. And there are times when I will not give a decision because it's not because I can't make a decision, but because I think a decision at that point in time could be wrong. So it's not to say that in all of these things I am Alex Ferguson. No, I'm not. I am all of these people that I put up in different varieties. So it's very important for me that I look at my self-evaluation as I'm going through, because I will have a huge impact on the culture of the school, which in turn will lead to outcomes. I want to look at leadership a little bit here again, because it leads to the outcomes. And there's two components to leadership. There's character and there's context. And if I look at the school context first, one of the first things that I would say to anybody who is coming into a leadership role, if it was a head teacher, and I have given kind of talks to up-and-coming head teachers, is know your school context, know what the community wants, because you need to deliver what the community wants. If you don't deliver what the community wants, they'll very quickly turn on you and say, you're not supporting the community. You're supporting yourself or whatever ideals it is or what have you. So what did the community in Madras want when I first arrived? That was 3 years ago. They were very keen that the pupils would wear uniform. They were very keen that there was better behaviour going on in the school. And they were very keen that the attainment was to be increased. And for me, all of those things sit under one umbrella, which is the image of the school. If I want to improve the image of the school, I'll improve how it looks, I'll improve how it attains, and I'll improve how the pupils behave and their whole manner and set of values. So what the community were saying to me was they wanted a better image for the school. It wasn't good enough at the time. So that was what I tried to set out to do, was to improve that image. In terms of school values, they're very similar. They will be similar to the head teacher's values, because the head teacher has such an impact in the school. But they are slightly different, and they will have their own set of values. Like the school's got its own set of values, which is attainment and achievement, how we support pupils, providing experiences, equality, resilience, good order, good learning, and so on. And we're going through an exercise just now to reassert just what are the school values at this point in time, so that we can ensure that what's happening through the curriculum reflects those values, because everything you do in the curriculum should reflect your values. And then there's the uniqueness of the school. And that's probably the key thing in terms of the school context. How unique is your school? What is it that your school does or is that's different? Because they're all different. There's no two schools the same. And it's because communities are all different. So I've listed out the kind of key things that Madras would say is unique. Here's why we're unique. We're a split site. We're 1.5 miles apart. There is no other school in Scotland that's a split site anywhere. I think there's one in Wales, and that's it. And the only reason I know that is because somebody from Wales phoned me to say they were going to take over a school as a split site as a head teacher. Could I give them some advice on how to do that? And because we were Welsh, I said no. No, it's a lie. I did actually support them. But that's the only other school that I know of that's got a split site. So we're very, very unique with 1.5 miles apart. And that, of course, brings with it its own operational issues. I wouldn't say problems, because there are huge advantages to having a split site as well as disadvantages. And it's always about looking at that. Anyway, we've got very strong university links. And I would say that I think we have very, very strong university links. We have university links through languages, through science, through the careers. And we're now going to be looking at TEFL and various other things. But the university comes into the school, supports the school, and we have students going out into different parts of the university as well. So there's this fantastic link, and it's just all part of the culture, which is it's quite unique. There is nowhere else like it. So that's a uniqueness that we have. And it'd be a shame to ever lose that, because it's so strong. We have no college close. Fife College doesn't really exist for us. The closest Fife College used to be was in Elmwood. But our students are not keen on travelling to Cooper. But actually there's nothing in Cooper now for them because Elmwood doesn't really exist for them. Fife College is now in Glenrothes or Kirkcaldy or Dunfermline. And that's where Fife College is. Pupils aren't going to go there. They need to, for a start, they need to walk to the bus station, and there's far too many outlets that sell chips and various things before they even get to the bus station. And then they need to get a bus to Cooper, and then they need to get a bus to Glenrothes, and possibly a bus to Kirkcaldy. It's just insane. It's not going to happen. So we don't really have a college input, and there's a lot of things that we did in order to overcome that. Like we have trained staff and got them accredited in the delivery of various courses that we would have wanted to have done at college. Like we actually do higher psychology, and we now do National 5 psychology. We've brought in the girls into energy, which is Shell, who are delivering in there. We've also increased what we can do in terms of the for the more vocational kids. We've got childcare. We've got childcare at National 5 now. We've got childcare at National 4, which is like credit in general. We've also altered what we do in engineering. Like engineering science, which is a National 5 course, was a wee bit hard for some of the kids. So we've got the staff trained and accredited in delivering, it's called engineering skills, at National 4 level, and so on. So we've changed the curriculum in order to deliver that internally. We've got dance at higher and National 5. So we've really looked at our curriculum to try and overcome the fact that we don't really have college. Because what happened last year was I tried to rely on college. I thought college were going to, and there was a whole load of rhetoric from the local authority about partnerships and all this kind of nonsense. And that was one partnership that just fell on the floor because they came in and delivered and said that they couldn't deliver anything other than the girls in Terranjade. So they delivered nothing. So suddenly we had all these kids who were signed up for courses, and there was nowhere to go with nothing to give them. So I was a bit miffed about that. So rather than doing what a good West Coaster does, which is stamp your feet and do a lot of swearing and stuff, we decided just to get the staff internally accredited with the SQA, and we'll deliver it ourselves. So it's like, if you want to play with your ball, we'll just go and buy our own ball, and we'll just play with that. So that's fairly unique, that we've no college. We're on 25 periods. There's 25 teaching units in the week. That's unique. There's no other school in Scotland doing that. Everybody else is going this 33 period unit. Rubbish. It's awful. It's dreadful. It's like 50 minutes, whereas we've got a 64-minute teaching unit, and I teach, and it's great. It's a great teaching unit because I can split the lesson. I can take a full lesson as well, but I can split the lesson much more easily. And the pupils then have got 5 periods in the day, which they find much better than this insane thing that's being imposed upon us, which is 7 periods in the day. There were 7 periods when I came here, and the first thing I did was cut it. So when the local authority came to me and said, you need to go back to 33, Dave, you can imagine my answer, and we're still in 25. And we will remain there for quite a while. The only concession I would give is that in future I would agree to go in 27 periods, and there's various reasons for doing that, but I won't move from the 25. 5 periods in a day is a great teaching day, and the kids like it. It's 2 periods a break, 1 period a break, 2 periods and home. And they don't have to carry all their stuff or what have you. And across a split site, I mean, it was absolutely mad. They went 7 periods across a split site. So the travels for the staff, and it's 20 minutes of travel. I need to allocate 20 minutes on their timetable for every travel that they do. Most staff were doing something like 13 or 14 travels a week. It was killing them. And it was killing the kids because they had a 20-minute part period cover, which was a non-specialist. So they wait 20 minutes before the staff got there on a 48-minute period. Anyway, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Split site, we're on 64 minutes and we're staying there. Parental support and challenges, we have tremendous parental support. And they do give me challenges, but I don't mind them. But we've absolutely fantastic parental support. It's great, and it's quite unique. You don't always get that. It's not every school that gets that. Our decile distribution, and that's unique to every school. It used to be the SIM decile, the Scottish Index for Multiple Deprivation. And that's what it used to be, and it was all calibrated for. So the lowest deciles had the most multiple deprivation factors in there. So they still call it the SIM decile, but that's now a lie because it's just a postcode. SIM decile 1 is now postcode 1, and it's the poorest postcode, and so on and so forth. And it's now just where you live. It's got nothing to do with all the factors in there. So I can have a child who is looked after. But has come from a background of really challenging circumstances, and that child can be in SIM decile 10, the best decile, because of where they stay. But it's got absolutely nothing to do with that child's circumstances and so on. So at the minute, you'll notice I'm being quite slagging off various people. I know that we're going to edit this later on. No, we're not. Oh, right, okay. But the decile distribution, our modal decile is decile 8. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. Our modal decile is 8. So Madras College is not in the decile 10 block, it's in decile 8. 9 and 7 are roughly the same, and decile 10 and 6 are roughly the same. We have some pupils in deciles 1, 2, and 3. I think it's 64 pupils in deciles 1, 2, and 3, out of a population of 1,270. So it's a reasonably small number, but it's still there. But it's not that Madras College sits in decile 10 in the leafy suburbs of East Wren or wherever. It's quite a mix because of our catchment. And it's quite nice to get that mix because that gives you a social mix in the school. I would much prefer to have that, so you get this kind of community thing in the school, which is really nice. And of course, the school's quite unique. I've not put it up there, but the Ministry of Defence pupils do add to this. But we've got quite a transient population. We've got in the region of about 60 to 70 pupils who move in and out of the school every year. And very few schools have that. So there is this transience that goes on within the school. But the mix that we get is quite incredible. And in fact, we agreed to take, I think it was 12 Chinese pupils at the start of this session. They came, they had written to us to say could they come and connect with the school, and that was from August through to October. So we enrolled them and they became part and parcel of the school. Only one of them could speak English, but by the end of the second week they were all in blazers. So they were the only ones in blazers, the rest were still fighting me. Anyway, so it's what makes your school unique. Is all part and parcel of the school context, and you have to take that into consideration when you're moving the school forward. In terms of character for leadership, I want to look at these 3 things because again, these are the things that I think are important. You'll notice I've said it's not personality. Character's got nothing. Leadership is not about personality, in my opinion. Leadership is about character. I've met so many leaders who are very personable. Politicians and so on, very personal, and really nice to meet, and excellent guys, and it's terrific. And I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. Character, I think, is far more important than personality. And within the character, I want to just very briefly look at my experiences. I'm a parent, and I was married before, and I have 2 children to my first marriage, but Liz and I have been married for 25 years, and we've got 5 kids. So I know a little bit about being a parent. I'm not saying I'm a good parent, I'm not at all, but I do know a little bit about the pitfalls and stuff. And kids are great, it's a great experience being a parent. Kids are terrific. Kids bring you joy. They'll bring you friends into the house. They'll bring you microorganisms like nits. They bring you all sorts of things into your house, and then they turn into teenagers, and again the joy just increases there. You go into a boy teenage room and it just absolutely stinks of testosterone, and anybody who's got a teenage son will know this. You just shut the door again immediately, and while you might want to argue with your son about the mess of his room, you just don't, because you can't stand the smell of it. Girls, on the other hand, are quite different. They're totally defiant. Their room is just as much messy as the boys, but they're incredibly defiant. I've got 3 girls and 4 boys, and I prefer it being that way around, in all honesty. And the kids, they won't stay in when you ask them, and then they won't leave home when they're older either. So everything's wrong about them, but they don't have to bring experience to you. So if you really want to know about experience, become a parent. It's one of life's great things. And I was an engineer, as Steve had said, and I did work in Doonray, and I worked in the British aerospace industry for a little while before just decide. And I just wanted to teach. I wanted to teach maths. I just wanted to do it. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. I just wanted to do it, and it was always a driving force. And I enjoyed being an engineer. It was good. And when I worked for in the British aerospace in Prestwick, there was this aeroplane that came in. It was a small passenger plane. It was a light plane. It's called the Jetstream. And it came from France, so everyone was in French, and all I had was schoolboy French, but that's probably more than my colleagues had on the floor. Anyway, it was really nice because you get something to do and you get something to make, and it's really quite worthwhile. And when I'm talking to the kids in the school, it's got a lot of kudos. So you made aeroplanes, Mr. Well, yeah, I correct. Yes, I would design and build aeroplanes, and that's like wow, great. What I don't tell them is the bit I got to do was the toilet at the back of the aeroplane. That was my designing function and making sure it worked. So they don't know that. a manager. I was a principal teacher of maths for 12 years, and so I had a lot of experience in terms of delivering maths courses and working with staff and so on. And of course, as a head teacher, I've been a head teacher at 2 schools. And teaching's so good. It's got such a variety in there. I'll tell you a story about when I was teaching maths as a maths teacher, and I was trying to do money management, which is one of the key things that you try to instill in the kids. And at that time, it was, how do you manage your money? And what I really wanted to get to was comparing prices, and if you have to borrow money and so on and so forth, what's the best way of borrowing it, and what are the rates, and if you were to pay it cash and save money, how long would it? And so I was really wanting to get into that kind of lesson. So I started off, and you're really full of enthusiasm, and you're like, I want to buy a television, I'm saying to them, and I can't afford it. So they're like looking at me, and there's, you mean you can't afford it? You're a teacher, of course you can afford it. And Ryan at the front, his name's not Ryan, by the way. Ryan at the front says, "Sir, my brother can get you one for 40 quid." I knew his brother, and he could get me one. In fact, Ryan's brother could get you any for 40 quid. Ryan could get you a car, for 40 quid, but you never drive it. And so I said, "That's not really where I want to go today, Ryan. My brother can get you one for 40 quid, sir." I said, "Yeah, I know he can, but I would rather get one in a box, okay? So let's move on." But you get all the lovely rich stories about that. I'll not be able to tell you half of them anyway tonight. Anyway, so in terms of all of this stuff, that all builds up in terms of experience. What is it that creates you? And there's a whole lot of stuff in there about the challenges that you have to face. I would like to, oops, have I gone mad here? Oh yeah, it's gone a bit silly. Sorry. Well, look. If you can just play it from there. Anyway, some of the stuff in terms of challenges. One of the challenges just now is that parents, and not just parents, but educationalists and so on, they don't work in real time. They seem to work in e-time. Like they want everything yesterday. They'll email in and start to get really grumpy because they couldn't get a meeting with you that morning, even though you got the email in the afternoon. So everybody seems to work in e-time, and that's a bit of a challenge. And it doesn't allow for cooling off time, which is often what they need. You just need people to just back off a wee bit and just settle down, sleep on it for a night, and so on and so forth. E-time doesn't allow that. So that's one of the big challenges that we have just now. And of course, there's always the pupil challenges. So there was this young guy a year ago, and we're doing the uniform, and really pushing the uniform, and so on and so forth. And he wasn't for it. He didn't really like it. Anyway, he came in, and he was wearing this big hat. And he was sent to me because it wasn't a uniform. Of course, it wasn't a uniform. So he was sent to me for wearing this big stupid hat. And I said to him, "What's with the hat, Ryan?" And I never named any of my kids Ryan, by the way. And actually, after about kid number 4, we just numbered them because we ran out of names. What's with the hat, Ryan? And he said, "You can't make me take it off." I said, "I wasn't asking you whether I should be making you take it off. Can you tell me the story behind the hat?" And he says, "I can wear this hat because it's my religion." I said, "I don't know of a religion that's based on a hat, Ryan, so do you want to enlighten me?" He says, "I'm a Rastafarian." I said, "Oh, right, you're a Rastafarian." I said, "And when did you become a Rastafarian? Because I don't remember reading that in your PPR." And he says, "At the weekend." "Oh," I says, "would that be around about the same time as you bought the hat?" "Yes," he says, "yes." So I said, "You're a Rastafarian, and that means that you have to wear a particular outfit." "Yes." And my mother says it's all right. And she would have done. Anyway, I said, "Okay, in that case, can you tell me who your spiritual leader is as a Rastafarian?" Oh, and he's looking inside the hat, and of course, the maker of the hat wouldn't be there. So he said after a few moments, when you could see the light coming into his eyes, he says, "That'd be Bob Marley." I says, "No, it would be Haile Selassie. You get the hat off, or you can him." Anyway, so there's always challenges, as you're going through and so on, and there's various such things in there. In terms of you always need to have a plan A, because you have to write the plan, and we have to write the plan in advance. It's meant to be a 3-year plan. Lucky if it lasts 6 months. And I would be saying that plan B is always the one that I work with, and plan B is your compass. Plan B is your instincts. It tells you what it is that's changing, that's coming up. And again, a lot of things about leadership has to be based on instinct. But instinct isn't just blind instinct. It's got to come from somewhere. So halfway through the year, our development plan will change. Things will change because there's so many developments and so on. And you need a kind of instinctive compass to take you there. you need to be aware of workload, you need to be resilient, because as a leader you should take the hits. You need to let other people get on with their job. So you need to stand there and take whatever hits are coming, and you need to be quite resilient for that. And a good sense of humour helps, and it's always a good drink on a Friday night. But you need to be quite resilient in terms of all of that. My values, that's the things that I value. I like value. I don't like blame. Blame's got nowhere to go. The minute you start blaming somebody, you're in a hole, and it's just a mess. They just defend themselves. So I don't do blame. I'm right into revenge, right enough, but I won't do blame. Equality and high standards, and I think people being valued, of course, is a true value as well. People need to feel valued. They should be valued, especially if they're working really hard. The things I don't like managers or leaders who use denial, because that's the easy out, you know. If they deny that something's wrong, they don't need to fix it because there isn't a problem there in the first place. So, and you get a lot of that. That's huge in my dealings with people. I don't like things that have no impact. That's just ticking a box, and I can't stand that. That really just bugs me. And I hate being told lies, not by kids, because they always tell you the way they see it, and they put their own agenda in there. I don't mind kids telling me lies. I just can't stand managers telling me lies. That just annoys me, because I feel it's disrespectful to me. So, what are the qualities? Well, you need to have courage, because you need to be willing to fight, and fight everybody. You need to fight. You need to be willing to fight the authority, the pupils who will pull the school down, the parents who will support their kids because it's easier to support the kids than it is to support the school. I don't blame them for that. I've got enough kids of my own to know how hard it is. But you need to have courage, and you need to be willing to fight, and to fight for the things that you think are right. You need to be focused, because in a school with 150 staff and a budget of 5.3 million pounds per annum, you need to know how to prioritise that so that you get the best from it. I think you need to be positive, no matter what. You have to be positive. And I saw a great T-shirt that embodied this for me. T-shirts are really good, you know. You could actually write a policy just on T-shirts for what you see. That was the T-shirt I saw. Video games ruined my life. Yeah, that's not very positive, is it? Until a guy walked past me, and then in the back. Fortunately, I have 8 lives left. So, yeah, it's very positive. And that's how I see it, you know. There's something that always comes along, and it just batters you, and you take a few minutes, and then you get into your stride, and you overcome it. Yeah, okay, video games ruined his life, but he'd eat more, so hey-ho. You need to be able to analyse in terms of sorting out culture and working with a school. Analysis is really quite important. I'm going to show you very, very briefly one or two things. You'll not know what that is, but that was analysing our primary 7 numeracy ability at the end of, just before the kids came into the school. The red means that they're not very good, and the green is that they're very good, and the yellow, they're sort of halfway in between. And that was a couple of schools. And there were some that were totally totally green, and there were some that were pretty much red, but most of them were a mix. And you need to, when you're analysing something, you need to be able to know not just what the data gives you, because that's not a set of tests or anything that the government's put forward. For me, analysis in this form, data analysis, is not about statistical knowledge. And I do have a maths background or an engineering background, so I'm reasonable with numbers, but I'm not a statistician. And in fact, I remember when we were doing statistics in our degree, it was always on a Friday afternoon, and I don't think I ever made it to more than 1 or 2 lectures throughout the whole lot. So I wasn't brilliant at statistics, but I didn't need it to pass. The rest of my degree got me through it. But it's not about statistical knowledge. Analysis is not about that. Analysis for me is about creativity, because you need to know what you want to measure. And then you need to think, how am I going to measure that? And then you need to think, what am I going to do with the information now that I've got it? And again, and it goes in a cycle, because if the means that you've used to measure what you want to measure is not accurate, then the information you've got won't really lend itself to you sorting it. So creativity is much more important than statistical understanding in terms of analysis, as far as I'm concerned. We created that so that we could analyse what was happening in the P7. We created this, it's called a column analysis, that in 4th year we've got 7 columns for 7 subjects. And what we wanted to know was how many national 5s was each column delivering. And the lowest column there you'll see is column 6, which is maths. And it's not because the maths teachers are poor. It's not at all because of that. It's primarily because maths is quite difficult, but what's being delivered up to 4th year, in my opinion, is not strong enough. So if I want to improve the outcomes for the school, I'm going to improve column 6, and the way I'm going to do that is not by working harder in 4th year, but by looking at what we are doing in the primaries in S1 and S2 and S3. That's being creative. That's got nothing to do with statistics. So I would say that statistical analysis is just a very small part of analysis. Analysing as well is not just about statistical analysis. When you're in a school, there's so many things that you have to do. And it's not just about looking at numbers. We often have to analyse what's happening here, because we do get the odd fight. It's not normally amongst the adults, although that can happen. It's usually amongst the children. And what you need to be able to do is to find out what happened, who was involved, when did it happen, what was the cause of this thing, and how you're going to resolve it. So analysis is not just about data analysis, it's also about the human analysis. And there's so much of that goes on in a school with 1,270 pupils and 150 staff that you're looking at nearly 1,450 people who all interact on a daily basis, and you're bound to get the odd grump, or worse. So analysis is also about trying to find out what happened and getting to the root of it. There's a huge amount of creativity that goes into that as well. I prefer, HB stands for, I prefer being a human being as opposed to being politically correct, as you would notice tonight. I'm not always politically correct. Human being is about making connections with the people. Being a head teacher as a human being, for me, means being a sensor to the soft data that people give you. And that doesn't come by reading charts or what have you. And that's really what allows me to develop my instincts for what's happening in the school, and for being able to switch, after about 6 months, my priorities and take me to where it is I want to go. So being a human being is absolutely crucial in terms of leadership. And the way that I do it is I've got my 5 a day. It's not quite every day, it's usually 3 or 4 days a week, where I meet 5 pupils. And I talk to them and ask them about what's going on. I ask them who their favourite teacher is. That's funny, that's a funny one, because 3 years ago they used to tell me their teacher, the one that they liked. But now they'll tell me either 3 or 4, or they quite often say all of them. And that's a huge move in the school, because if the pupils are saying that their favourite teacher is all the teachers they get, that's the ideal answer. But we're really moving quite a bit into that. So when I also ask them what stops you learning. And again, 3 years ago, it used to be bad behaviour. Now it's mostly themselves. I talk to my friend, or my friends talk to me. So there's quite a shift in terms of the answers that we get. I ask them a whole load of stuff about their course choicing, did they get what they wanted, and so on and so forth. But it's quite a nice wee exercise, and it's a nice part of my day, because the rest of my day is often not that nice. But it's quite a nice part of my day is just talking to them and asking them about what's going on and various things that I really would like to find out about the school. And I report it back to the staff. And if somebody is mentioned as a favourite teacher, I'll go and tell them. In my 5 a day today, you got a mention as favourite teacher. And it always gives them a lift, always. And so far, out of the I think it's 90 teachers, I genuinely think there's something like 87 or 88 have been nominated. It's if not all. So there's a nice wee bit in there when you're talking to them in 5 a day. I do one-to-ones as well with my deputies. I've got 4 deputies. I've got 2 in Colruyment and 2 in South Street. Although we do we mix over in terms of teaching. But the one-to-ones, I meet with them every week, once a week, on a night. So on a Monday I meet with Angela, on Tuesday I meet with Olav, and on a Wednesday I see Kenny, and on a Friday I see Hugh, although I met him earlier today. And on a Thursday we all meet together as a group, and we put the things in there. But the one-to-one is really, really key, because the very first thing, everything on it, it's not that we've got a set, a written agenda, but we've kind of got a set agenda. And the very first thing always is pupils. We talk about pupils. And we'll talk about what's been going on, what incidents, and who we're dealing with, and what the problems, and how we're resolving that, and so on and so forth. And again, that gives me an instinct for what's going on and what's happening. And I would say that's a very human being thing. I'm not interested in being politically correct around it when I'm talking to my deputies. If I have to make a public statement, I will be politically correct. I'll try and make sure of that. But in the one-to-ones, it's great to find out everything. I always reply to anything that comes in, always. It doesn't matter what the emails are, I will reply. If somebody sends me an email directly, I will reply to letters, I'll always reply. And one of the things about that I insist to the deputies and the PTs is you must always reply. Even if it's a holding reply, even if it's to say we need to investigate that and I'll get back to you in 5 days, just reply. Always give a reply because people have taken the time to contact you. Normally, if it's an email, it's because they're mad, and you can read that in their email statement. But I'll always give a reply with regard to that. We do management by walking about a little bit. Like every day, I will make sure that I have spent at least 1 hour going around the school. And I'll try to do that in both sites. I don't always manage it, but I will try to do it in both sites. I will walk around the school and I'll walk into classes and I will see what the kids are doing and I will ask them, tell me what you're doing. What is it you got today? And they'll explain their lesson, hopefully, to me, if the lesson's been well explained to them. And the staff like it because it ensures good behaviour, because if I meet anything in the corridor, they'll be dealt with. Last week I met Ryan in the corridor. Ryan's having a hard time tonight. And he was outside English, and I said to him, "What are you doing here, Ryan?" And he says, "I was doing my art in English." I said, "You shouldn't be doing your art in English, Ryan, should you?" "No, I shouldn't be doing that, Mr. McClure." I said, "What do you mean you were doing your art anyway? Did you have art stuff? Did you have art folder out?" "No, I was doing the art in the back of my English jotter." "All right. So what was it you were drawing?" "I was drawing alien mushrooms." I said, "All right. Can I see them?" "Oh," he said, "they're not that good. I'd like to see your alien mushrooms. I really would." "They're not very good, Mr. McClure." I said, "Get your jotter. I want to see your alien mushrooms." So he brought the jotter out and he showed me his alien mushrooms. I said, "It's awfully like a male penis, you know that? This alien mushroom that you've drawn, Ryan." And I said, "If I look through the jotter, am I going to find any more alien mushrooms?" He said, "There's 2 or 3. I said, "All right, okay, you're on detention, but we'll be no more of these alien mushrooms. Is that okay?" But you always, if you're going to go walk about, you need to be able to deal with whatever it is that comes at you, and sometimes it's not as easy as that. It can be anything and everything. But that's actually quite key because the staff, I think, feel supported in that. They tell me they feel supported in that. I teach a class. I've always taught. I've never not taught. I teach a class, and I like teaching. And I love teaching maths. It's why I came into teaching. So I'm not giving that up. And I teach my National 5 class. And there's something about teaching your class because you get credibility. You also get to see how your policies are working because they come back round. I get quality assured. My jotters get taken in by the principal teacher. My stuff gets looked at like everybody else's. My results get looked at along with everybody else's. The kids will know me as a teacher as well as a head teacher. And I think that's really, really important. But all the things that I see in the classroom, things that they can't do, it confirms what I see in the data. So there's a lot of stuff goes on in there, but I'll never not teach. It's really why I'm there, and I do enjoy it. So teaching, again, is another kind of human being type thing. Oops. For me, being a leader is a balancing act, and it's about balancing the 3 things. It's about balancing being strategic, being pragmatic, and micromanaging the school. By micromanaging, if I see somebody who's not wearing their blazer, I'll nip their head. If I see somebody whose jotter's got graffiti on it, I'll give them what for. As I go around the school and so on and so forth. I don't think you can lead without micromanaging. I don't think you can lead without being strategic. And certainly you can't lead without being pragmatic. You have to have things that are going to work that are in there all the time. And I'm going to finish with a quote from Aristotle. We are what we do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. Excellence is not about grand gestures or great initiatives that come along, as many of my colleagues in the local authority might think. Excellence is not about that at all. Excellence is about what you do every period of every day, day in, day out. Because if that's excellent, then it's a habit and your school is excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, there's a huge amount there, and a huge amount which talks to our bread and butter, behaviour, attitudes, leadership, all topics which are obviously researched within the school. But are there any questions or comments that you want to ask? Okay.
I was struck by your example about how the way which the students understand the teachers and talk about the teachers has changed. And I wonder also if you noticed a difference in the way the teachers talk about the pupils over that period of time. You know, how they've come to see the pupils and the kind of language they use, whether that's also changed.
Generally speaking, the answer to that is yes. They have indeed. Because again, 3 years ago, the function, or most of the focus rather, was on bad behaviour. And we don't talk about that quite so much. No, teachers always talk about kids behaving and so on. But it's very much now at the low level in discipline that goes on. And it's always about fixing that, because you can fix that. That's quite easy to fix. We had to go through an exercise in the first year that I was in there where the deputies and myself split every period. It was in Colriment that we did it, every period, and we visited every class, every period for a month. And we would walk in and say, tell me who's not engaging in the lesson, tell me who's stopping the others from learning, and we'll have a word with them just now. And we took them out, and we built up actually a list, and then we were able from that, first of all, to meet with every pupil who the teachers felt had been disrupting, but then secondly, to be able to be looking at the pattern that was happening in there, so that it's not just about punishing the people, it's also about supporting the people, you know. So it's the balancing act between putting things in place to support and making sure that the pupil understands the boundaries and the strategies that they need to connect with. So it's to get that kind of balance right. But the teachers, they were very happy to engage in that. And after a month, we had all the data that we wanted, and we had been round everybody. And since then, it's all gone right down to sort of low-level stuff. The teachers now will talk very rarely. Well, they will still talk about indiscipline, but they now tend to talk about the workload, which the SQ have dumped on them in terms of all the new qualifications and the internal assessments and so on. And they will talk about the courses that they're delivering as well, which of course is what you know, and sometimes they'll talk about teaching as well. Sometimes they'll talk about pedagogy too. In fact, quite often they will, and they'll discuss, like in maths just now, they've put in what's called ninja maths into first year, and it's to try and support the kids who are coming through from primary with not very good core number bonding or number connections. So they're doing a kind of ninja project, and they talk about that, and they talk about how that's improving or working, and how we'll embed that, because it's a pilot just now, and how we'll take that forward. So yeah, there's a different kind of talk around that. They still moan though. So do I, of course.
Great.
Can you tell us about uniform? You put it very high in your priorities.
Yeah.
I mean, why? I struggle with uniform at school, but is it a sense of identity you want to confer, obedience? Why uniform?
There's various reasons for it. First of all, it was the parent community who were very clear that they wanted the school image to improve.
Why do you think it's important?
For them or for me? For both. There's various reasons behind it. I think it is important. Well, for a start, in terms of South Street, there's a massive thing that's required, which is called security, because it's an open campus, and even just for security for South Street. The first week I was in Madras, the very first week, there was a fire, there was a fight, and there was drugs being sold on campus. And I couldn't have told you whether it was pupils or intruders or whoever was doing it, or staff. I couldn't have told you who it was that was doing it, because the place was just hoodies and what have you, and you just no idea. So there's a massive security issue around an open campus school, and uniform addresses that. So that is one issue. Another issue, of course, is that if the kids are going to fight me on something, it's nicer that they fight me on uniform rather than anything else. So there is a psychology which says I'll put my fight to a place where I can defend it, because I can defend it on security, and the kids will always kick against you. So that's a better place for them to kick against me. So they do, because they're always going to kick against you in something. So there is that as well. But then there is the image of the school, because the image of the school, and I took it to the pupils as well, and said to them, our first year roll is increasing. The school roll was still going down because there had been this decrease year on year. So the school roll was falling. And for every 18 pupils that the school loses, I lose a member of staff. My FTE gets cut. So year on year, the school were losing staff. And I have no say over who it is. It's the last one into 5. So it could be your best teachers get cut, get taken out. So I'd said to the pupils, you have to understand that if we don't get the image right, because it's the image that supports the community who send their kids to the school, even though, because there was loads of kids going to different schools. So if we want to retain our staff, and if you like the staff that you've got, and if it's young staff, you're going to lose them, because the young staff will be the last ones into Fife. They'll be the first ones to be taken out of the school. Whereas if you start to increase your school roll, and you start to bring more people in. So I go back to the energy thing, that if I can bring in 1 or 2 new staff each year, and if they're young staff, then I'll be adding to the energy of the school. So there's a lot of reasons, and not always just as obvious as one might think. And again, I don't know if that supports the parental, but as a parent as well, with a lot of kids, getting them ready in the morning, thank God is my wife's job and not mine. But getting them ready in the morning is really quite difficult, because if they want to decide what they're going to wear, it's horrendous. Whereas just getting into the uniform drawer, that's it, you wear that, so that there's a parental thing there, which is much easier. So I suppose there's a whole raft of things that sit in there.
Do you think as well that it creates a sense of kind of, maybe affects a sense of community in the school, or a sense of responsibility? So I went to a school in Edinburgh and we didn't have a uniform when I was there, and it's been an ongoing fight for years.
Yes.
That the most recent head teacher, I think, is beginning to win. So I'm quite interested to see that Madras kind of went through the same route, and there's the same kind of questions. And some of the arguments I had heard was that it does help foster that sense of...
It does indeed. There's a sense of identity that goes with it. Once you've won the initial battle, there's no identity while you're fighting with them. But there's a sense of identity that goes with it, and a sense of respect. And there's a sense of supporting your school, because in terms of sport and all the rest of the things, if there is a strong image and identity that goes with that, you tend to get more people in. I can quote you a figure as well, which is that Madras, I just found out last night, 54% of the pupils in Madras engage in the physical activity in the school, 54%. And that's the highest in Fife. The closest school to us has got 48%. So there's this engagement. We've got the highest engagement in music in Fife, and possibly in Scotland. So we've got the highest engagement in a whole load of things with regard to that. And I don't really know what's all behind that, but I would suspect that respect and for your school and that whole sort of being part of something that you think is good adds to all of that. I couldn't swear to it, but I would suspect that it does sit in there.
So one way of creating a good, strong sense of group is to make sure you've got an out-group. Is you want out-group the local authority?
You mean in terms of managers or pupils?
Yeah, well, maybe both.
No, not really. I mean, I will argue and fight with the authority if I think that I need to. Currently, the issues that we have with the local authority tend to be issues around uniqueness. Madras is quite unique in many of its respects, and of course that in itself requires a pragmatic approach to a whole load of things.
Yeah,
yes, and whereas the authority at the minute are they don't really fight with me, and I've got to say I got on well with Derek, who's the head of education. It's not so much. It's more with some of the partners that we have who have a different sort of understanding of the school, because what they see is a sort of global picture of how schools are across Fife. So like social work and so on. And again, I'm not knocking them because they have. I don't walk in their shoes, so I know that it's a difficult job they have as well. But they have a different agenda and a different vision of what's going on. The vision I've got is one of a unique. It's a bit like you're dealing with an individual rather than a collective amount, and it's the same with the school. It's an individual school, and within that there's individuals in there. So most of my challenges are because of the school's uniqueness, and it's to, I suppose, not maintain the uniqueness, but to support the challenges of that uniqueness. I do not want to lose what the school has, which is the links with the uni and so on and so forth. And sorry?
Split site you might want to lose.
I might want to lose a split site, yes. I mean, it's got advantages. I can tell you now, if you ask the pupils, they don't want to change it. They like the split site. I mean, it's got huge disadvantages, but there are pluses that go with it as well. One of them being that we have capacity. And again, that's a pragmatic thing. I mean, the kids don't like it for that. The kids like moving to South Street. They like being in the town. They like the links with the university. They like the whole atmosphere of a senior school. The juniors like being juniors. They like being third-year prefects because no other school can really do that. So they like having their identity, and then they like the shift halfway through. So there's a whole host of things like that. But in terms of capacity and a split site, for example, I've got, I think on the 2 sites I have got 15 labs. On the 1 to 25 periods, so the 25 periods across the week, I will use up to 13 of those labs. So I can deliver a whole lot of advanced hires. I can deliver all the special arrangements because I've got extra capacity rooms because it's a split site. So if I go to a single site, I won't have the capacity to give all the special arrangements for dyslexic readers and so on and so forth at exam time. I won't have that. I'm not quite sure how I'll do that. And equally, in the new build that's proposed, there's 9 labs, and currently I use 13. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to resolve that when it comes round without loss. So the split site, because it's got 2 sets of facilities, it gives me more to work with, and at times I'll use that. So I'll use whatever's there, and if it's a single site, I'll manage that as well. But I wouldn't say everything's negative. The water coming into my office whenever it rains is a negative, and that's not a joke. The freezing cold in the winter, because the boilers, although they're new, it's not the radiators, they're not. And we've got asbestos in all parts of the building. We've got asbestos in the assembly hall in South Street, which is a real bit of a pain because we deliver part of the PE there, but I can't deliver it anymore because if a ball hits it, it will send asbestos dust into the air. So PE is currently not on 2 sites, it's on 4. PE is in the Station Park, it's in South Street Gym, it's in Colryment Gym, and I've had to book the Cosmos gymnasium as well. So the pupils kind of travel up and down. I think some of them get lost in the way, but I haven't quite found where they go yet. So PE is over 4 sites. So yeah, there are disadvantages, and it's just like everything else. There's pluses and minuses. You just do what you can.
If 5 council realised you had a shower in your office, they'd take that away.
Yes, they would.
I'll take one last question. We'll continue discussing next door, but one more question before we finish.
So apologies for a lack of understanding of the system after school, but I thought college is something you do after secondary school, yes?
No.
Or no?
No, it's one of the partnerships that you can have from basically 3rd year onwards.
College will be delivering secondary school
Curriculum, yes. Yeah, mostly skills for work. It tends to be more the vocational type courses because we don't have the facilities for that. Plumbing and so on. They've got much better facilities. We've got no plumbing at all actually in the building at times. Anyway, so no, college will deliver quite a few courses, and equally in terms of like some of the upper college, like we used to get college to deliver psychology at higher. And that was simply because they had the expertise, and you have to go through quite a bit of falderal to get a member of staff, who's got psychology on their degree, but then secondly to get them accredited through the SQA. It's not just a simple matter of if they've got it in their degree they can teach it. No, it takes a bit of time. So if you don't want to have that time lag, which is at least a year, and that means there's a year where pupils can't access it, and that's a whole group then that are cut out. So you do use college for a whole load of things. Tends to be more vocational though, and skills for work.
So if you've got your staff who are doing the typical teaching, if I can call it that, and then because you don't have access to a college, you've had to get all your staff, or lots of your staff accredited,
Yes.
to teach the college type courses. But how do you divvy up their time? You'd be expecting them to do the normal teaching,
Yes.
if you like, but they also have to do the college teaching on top.
I put it into the curriculum. And if it's embedded in the curriculum, then it becomes part of the course choice. So it then becomes part and parcel of how we set up the timetable with the teacher input there. It does mean, though, that I've had to increase what we are delivering on the same budget as I had before. So your point is quite correct. That if I had college staff coming in, which didn't cost me, and I'm now having to pay teachers to, like if I'm paying a teacher to do National 4 childcare, National 5 childcare, that's 6 periods. National 5 psychology and higher psychology, that's 10 periods, that's 16 periods in a week. Engineering skills is another 4, so that's now 20 periods in a week. And can't remember what else I had in there, but if it's 20 periods, say it was just that, that's 1 FTE. So I am now paying 1 FTE more, which is a full salary, and with on costs, which is paying for pension and so on and so forth. The on costs of a mid-range or a mid-teacher, not mid-range in terms of the skills, but just in terms of their age and so on, that's about £35,000. So yeah, there's a budget loss to me of £35,000, which I do not get back. But then times are hard.
Okay, well, as I say, we're going to go and have a drink and snacks next door. I was delighted as the conversation went on, the topic of school identity, of a sense of group belonging came up, which is probably at the core of the work that the social psychologists in the department do. And in fact, Ken has got a book about to come out on identity groups and school performance, so perhaps there's a conversation to be had there. There was one thing that you didn't talk about, but was everywhere in your talk, which was the role of humour as central in communication and in leadership. So I'd like to thank you very much for a very informative, but also a very enjoyable and entertaining talk. And as I say, I hope it is the beginning of an enduring relationship and an enduring friendship. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Steve. Thank you.
So we're going to go and have a drink.
Yes, sir.